which could not only humiliate her, but also take away her dignity and her medals. It is extremely concerned that the IAAF would take such measures to strip a world-class athlete of her title because it does not support their agenda. What is even more concerning is that the fact that thousands of athletes across the world have above average natural talents, skills and capabilities, and yet they are not subject to a process of humiliations and questions on their sexual orientation and genetic. The IAAF stands firm with Mrs. Semenya as she faces the trial times in her care. Mrs. Semenya is a national asset and is a proudly South African. She is not only an inspiration to millions of South Africans, but also the thousands of aspiring young athletes across the country. The IAAF calls upon all African athletics, all sporting code, and nations to unite, stand together, and boycott IAAF event in the future if this unfair ruling is not dismissed. Hands off, Caster, hands off. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kubisa.
Deputy Speaker, honorable members, thank you very much. The National Freedom Party stands here today with all the people of goodwill in South Africa, in Africa and in diaspora to unequivocally express our support to our golden girl, Caster Semenya, as she stands crucified and discriminated against for her divine potential, for her God-given talent, for who she is. She is being crucified for being an excelling, resilient, unwavering, and unmatched athlete of the world, our creme de la creme. This torture reminds us where we come from as a nation. The nation where the best of our majority, women, men, and youth, who were segregated against and could not showcase their God-given talent and potential. What is happening to Caster is the worst form of racism, practice of patriarchy, and chauvinism. We say to the IAAF, hands off, back off, and leave Caster alone. Is she discriminated against because she is a black woman who is excelling? This is gender discrimination and injustice at its zenith. The people of South Africa, black, white, colored, Indian, will not be fooled. They all stand behind Caster Semenya. IAAF do not act in a devilish way and bring in all these draconian laws and scientific regulation just because of the hatred meted against Caster. This is hatred to all people of South Africa. You hate seeing the best talent we have. It seems to us as South Africans that there is some jealous out there. Some people out there envy her medals. Caster was born with impressive talent, which she realized when she was still very young. She worked hard to maximize it and woke up early in the dusty gravel roads of Limpopo to do her practice. She has acquired a diploma in sports science and is full of hope, faith, resilience, and optimism. She's out there to maximize her God-given talent. Leave her alone. She's a role model to many young people and young women of all races, showing them that no matter your background, your environment, or circumstances, you can rise and become whatever you want to become, as long as you have a vision, a dream, and work hard with patience and determination. Her spirit has always been uncrushable, and we salute her for that. As South Africans, we want to say to Caster, we are all united behind you, and we want you to heed the words of Walter Emerson, who said, I quote, "What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." That I unquote. Then with all of us behind you, we shall overcome. These too shall be conquered. We shall emerge triumphant. We support Caster. Thank you.
Honorable Kwankwa.
We also, on behalf of the United Democratic Movement, we stand in support of the Hands Off Caster campaign, because as the party we believe strongly that if one were to think that this is a medical issue, it would be to spectacularly miss the point. This is a case of not only a patriarchal system that wants to determine how women should be and what kind of scientific issues should dictate how women should continue to compete in sport, but it's a question in general to say that men have a tendency of thinking that women are inferior. And the minute there's a sign of superiority among them, it's because there is something wrong. The second issue, this is a case of clear racism, where if you are a different color, in particular black, and you happen to excel in something, it's because of the color of your skin or genetic makeup, and there must be a scientific excuse to try and dumb down your successes. We reject this with the contempt it deserves. And we say that a typical example that I wish to make, the challenge would have here is one. People who are geniuses, they would be expected to lower their IQ levels if we're to follow this, so that they can think that like the rest of us who are not geniuses. We celebrate those who have high IQs, but we tell those who are also gifted along the similar lines to say, you need to come down to our levels, and yet we celebrated the likes of Albert Einstein and others. It's the hypocrisy that exists in the world. We are deeply humbled by what is happening to see us standing together in support of our casta, united in our diversity. As Winston Churchill once put it, when there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. Where there's unity, there is always victory. We must continue to stand together and say, hands off our casta, we love her, we are going to fight for her and fight with her, because not only are we her leaders, we are also South Africans. An injury to casta is an injury not only to us politicians, but is an injury to South Africans, it's an injury to Africa, and therefore we should all indeed stand together in support of casta and say, hands off casta, hands off. Tata casta, tata. Amandla.
Honorable Njaya.
Pagama Costa, Pagama. Let us welcome and appreciate the statement delivered by our Honorable Minister here. Now it is time that we should all come together and do as one and rally behind Casta. She is one of our own, she is our champion. So there's no reason why you should not support her. This International Association of Athletics Federation is missing a point here, and their claim against Casta is frivolous. Who are they to cast aspersions on Casta and on God's creation and nature? The monopoly in sport that these people are enjoying must come to an end now. Just imagine anything good from Africa and South Africa is not good according to these powers that be. Casta cannot be discriminated just because she is strong and excels in sport. She is a young, natural, gifted, black African woman, and nothing else. The issue of this testosterone is also misplaced. She must not be targeted against because she's a strong woman from Africa in general and South Africa in particular. We were the champions before, the champions like Martina Navratilova and Serena Williams. These were never targeted. Why Casta now? They should learn from the case of duty from India, where it was found that there was nothing, there was no evidence at all that this testosterone gave female athletes competitive advantage. We hope that the case that has been reserved now will come in our favor. We say hands off, Casta, hands off, Pagama Kosazana, Pagama. They should not fight against creation. I thank you.
Thank you. Slal. Honorable Dulani.
Sekela somlomo. Mphathiswa ohloniphekileyo nosekela mphathiswa. Malungu ahloniphekileyo alendlu. Kwindwendwe zethu kwiqonga lababukeli. Ngakumbi nangakumbi kuni nina bantu abatsha enizibiza ngokuba ningamayanga-yanga. Nesizwe ngokubanzi. Ndiyanibulisa. Somlomo ohloniphekileyo ndivumele ndisebenzise elithuba okukuqala ndibulele abantu baseMzantsi Afrika ngenkxaso engagungqiyo abathe bayinika uCaster Semenya emabaleni ebaleka ngamaxesha anzima kwinkundla yezemidlalo nezembambano. Siyakubulela mphathiswa wezemidlalo Honorable Thokozile Xhasa ngokufunuka uye eSwitzerland ukuya kuxhasa nokuya kuvakalisa inkxaso karhulumente nesizwe yena buqu. Le yindlela urhulumente abonakalisa ngayo inkathalo nenkxaso yakhe. Urhulumente okhokhelwa yi-ANC uyaqhuba ukukhokhelisa ukwakha isizwe nenhlalonhle ngemidlalo. Urhulumente we-ANC ubhinqele phezulu ukulwa ucalucalulo ngokwesini, ngobuhlanga, nentiyo kwisini umntu azikhethele sona ngokunganyamezelani. Siyitsho loo nto kuba ngamanye amaxesha uyufumaniseka ukuba nalapha kuthi singomama asikwazi ukuxhasana. Kule minyaka engamashumi-20 edluleyo i-ANC isebenze ngokuzinikela ukubuyisela isidima sabantu bakuthi. Ngokunjalo siyala ukuvumela ukuba uCaster okanye nabani na omnye umntu ukuba baphathwe ngendlela engenasidima nengenabuntu. Phofu ke thina siyi-ANC sifuna ukukhumbuza isizwe nehlabathi ngokubanzi ngamazwi amakhulu angqinwa ngumongameli ongasekhoyo uNelson Mandela wokuba urhulumente okhokhelwa yi-ANC unombono obanzi ngokuthi chatha oluntu olunganacalucalulo nobuhlanga olukhululekileyo nelomeleleyo. Andizuwaphinda loo mazwi ngoba umphathiswa uye wawathi dakanca ngesilungu. Yinkululeko eyamkela ngokupheleleyo indima edlalwa ngabasetyhini kuluntu kwaye siseko amaziko okusebenza ngokukodwa ngemiba yesini nabasetyhini. Siqwalasele ngokucacisekileyo nenkqubo elinye ilinge lenziwa yibhodi yemidlalo eyimanyano yombutho wembaleki zezizwe ngezizwe. You know, similarly, in 1966, at the European Athletic Champion, female competitors were paraded to determine their sex. Indikhumbuza xa ndandingena kwezinye izisele ndihanjiswaze kwathiwa manditshekishe uba njengoba ndingulo mfazi akukho nto endiziqhusheka apha emphantsini wam. In the 1966 Commonwealth Games, female athletics were forced to undergo gynecological exam to prove their sex. In 2014, the IAAF banned uchadi because her body naturally produced too much testosterone and as such gave her an unfair competitive advantage other female athletes. Uchadi challenged this ruling on the IAAF policy at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which ruled that, I'm open quote, the IAAF was unable to conclude that hyper-androgenic female athletes may benefit from such a significant performance advantage that it is necessary to exclude them from competing in the female category. Why sizawuhlala phansi? Why are we not saying hands off to Caster, hands off? The IAAF was given 2 years to produce enough evidence to justify its policy, which led to the IAAF suspending hormone tests which allowed females like our Caster to continue competing without having to lower their hormone levels. That's what we are doing, Khadi, today. The new set of regulations announced by the IAAF seek not only to demoralize and undermine her as an exceptional athlete, but also infringe on her human rights. These new rules, in a nutshell, gives female athletes who have high levels of testosterone an ultimatum to either succumb and take medication over our bodies as South Africans. Will support and siyakuyinyasha umthetho ocinezela abantu besifazi kuba kwanhlandlolo singabafazi kusaphila omama uSisulu. They were fighting for this discrimination of women, and we are saying no Caster is going to go and cook in the kitchen. Laphela ixesha loba siyopheka emakhaya. Lixesha lokuba sizibonakalise iziphiwe esiziphiweyo, not to be told ngabantu abangayaziyo lento. Siyasazi esi sport, sisuka apha kulomzantsi. This means that if Caster, who competes excellence and dominates the world in the 400 and 800 meters, does not choose to take the medication which is taken daily, lower her testosterone, wauka wayivaphi lonto. Uvele uthi umdali ekudalile wasizalela uCaster. uCaster waba nesiphiwe kuzofika ababasembo ababamweza bazothi no makadle idrug that is going to not to promote what has been given by God. Sinowada here who's looking after abantwana that they are taking drugs. Bona bathu uCaster makathathe idrug in order that angazukwazi ukucompete. Phansi ngabacindezeli phansi. Andihlala phansi. Siyabulela ilizwe laseMzantsi lincediswa ngamazwe angaphesheya nala professor oye wayonkqonkqoza kwi-ofisi kamphathiswa okokuba will be with you. That Indian people, that they were against what is going on about the women of international. We are with you. On the day that we are going to have this final decision, we want that all of us, even if the parliament is on, we must go up wherever and put these things that we are wearing. Amandla.
Thank you. Honorable the Minister.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much once more to all the members who came and supported the call for us to oppose these unjust regulations. And it is only when a country stands behind its athletes that we can all send a very strong word to the world. And South Africa, as a unique country, it has to continue to teach the world that not now, not at this time, where we can talk and, make them to understand what has to happen. So South Africa, you stand together here, both as members coming from all walks of life, members of parliament from all political parties, supported by the people of South Africa, All the federations are here, Deputy Speaker. They are supporting us. Pan-African Women's Organization supports us. Africa supports us. It is only if you say individual countries, but as the regions, they support all of us, and everybody wants to make sure that we cannot go forward to have sporting bodies that are not monitored. It is not interference, but they deal with our people, our young people. They must not subject them to these atrocities. Most of the young people get to be operated without consent of their parents in countries where they don't even understand language. When parents have agreed to take those kids to participate, giving them an opportunity, they are discriminated against, they are subjected to this. So we thank the opportunity that the House agrees with us, and we urge honorable members that although we know you're going to a campaign for your parties, but this is one thing that you must make sure you don't leave behind. You unite the world behind Caster Semenya and behind the opposition of these regulations. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, on behalf of the rest of the presiding officers, we would like to associate ourselves with the message of this campaign and the support it received from all of the speakers today. And this will be communicated appropriately. That concludes the party responses to the statement. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of request for permission in terms of Rule 286(4)(c) to inquire into amending other provisions of Airports Company Act 1993, Act number 44 of 1993.
Honorable members, I have Honorable D.P. McCarthy here. I see someone else. Is that you, sir? Please go ahead. Next time, I will refuse you to speak if I'm not told in advance. Go ahead, Honorable Pat.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm so sorry, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson.
You mean Deputy Speaker?
Deputy Speaker, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, ministers. My job is just small. First of all, I will say that the African National Congress supports the bill. The bill seeks to amend the Airports Company Act of 1993. The bill was referred to the committee on the 27th March 2018, and it was published and received no public input. The amendment affects Section 2 of the Principal Act as well as other amendments to bring the Act in line with the current wording used in the Public Service Act. The Section 2 amendments are required to align the Principal Act with the current implemented Companies Act schedule and the PFMA. The bill seeks to amend the Airports Company Act 1993 so as to insert and amend certain definitions, to substitute certain expressions, to amend other provisions of the Principal Act which were not included in the bill, and further extend the public consultation in respect of the proposed amendment that are beyond the scope of the bill. The bill also seeks to provide a meeting of, to provide the meetings of the committee to amend, also to amend the period for the issuing of a permission, also to provide the decision of the committee, also to provide the establishment of the appeals committee, also to provide the appeals against the decision of the committee. Chairperson, I'm so sorry also I wanted to indicate that the African National Congress is the party which is concerned with the following, which we must upgrade and also to improve some of the laws which were there before we came during 1994. As usually, that is the only African National Congress who made sure that it improves most of the bills. So I would like the House to support these recommendations. Thank you.
Honorable members, are there any objections to the committee being granted permission in terms of Rule 2864C to inquire into amending other provisions of the Airports Company Act?
Deputy Speaker, there's no objection, but we would like to make a declaration. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ndati.
The DA finds purpose in this request and supports the bid to this House to amend the Principal Airports Act 44 of 93 for the purpose of especially Section 2 in the amendment. This was found to be necessary amongst about 11 other needs to insert, amend and provide for improvements. Changes which for more than 60 days sadly has found no comment or input from stakeholders of the aviation sector. This might be based on the fact that the changes appear to be cosmetic in nature with little apparent effect on the industry or functioning. Section 2 in particular deals with a deceptive compliance issue which originates from the dual status of AXA, which in 93 was also formed as a public company under the Companies Act. Also, although AXA in the major owned by the government through the Department of Transport, the entity is legally and financially autonomous and operates under commercial law. In terms of compliance then, particularly updates are sought to align with recent changes. AXA is 74.6% SOE, was partially privatized in 98 when a 25.4% shareholding was sold to private sector shareholders. In 2005, of the 25%, 20% foreign held shareholding was sold to the local asset management company PIC. The 5.4% balance in shareholders have for the best part of the last decade struggled to find an ear for the dilemma that was promised by government in what was now developed in a drawn-out share buyback court case. These elements are underlying aspects which can never be downplayed as mere cosmetic changes to any legislation. The bigger picture, therefore, is one of future design which will allow for economic enablement, a solution and plan that will hold benefit to all, not just a few. Forward thinking which will grant opportunity to millions, not just some. While AXA is introduced as operating like any other commercial business, closer scrutiny suggests otherwise, and this includes volatility in the governance structure, internal control deficiencies, lack of consequence management for transgressions and poor performance, slow response by management to develop and implement action plans, to mention just a few. The bigger picture, therefore, is one of redesign and not just ornamental improvement. A debate which will include how private sector can play a role in fixing our SOEs, which SOEs and parastatals should be kept and what not. In this case, AXA, the appropriateness and suitability of relevant structure. While some might view this application to amend the AXA Principal Act as aesthetic in nature, the DA will approach each legislative opportunity of redesign with everyone's best interest in mind. The DA is focused on finding solutions and to promote change to the current conditions amongst our SOEs. One-sided majority party dominance for one is something which the DA will not tolerate. Consequently, we support this request to change. This, like any other legislative opportunity, will attract our best input and contributions because we are serious about building one South Africa for all. I thank you.
EFF.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The EFF do not have any fundamental objections to the proposal. Further additions be made to the Airport Companies Amendment Bill. As we acknowledge that it is necessary to align the legislation, we will therefore use this opportunity to discuss an issue that directly relates to AXA, the issue of the Fireblade. How is it acceptable for a family to have a private terminal at OR Tambo International is ludicrous, as this is not just any family, it is the Oppenheimer family, the wealthiest family in this country. Through Anglo-America, which they founded, and the De Beers, which they partly own and ran for many years, the Oppenheimer family, more than any other, have benefited from the dispossession and exploitation of the black majority. Using their ill-gotten wealth, the Oppenheimer family have managed to turn those into government to their puppets who are abiding behind, and the Oppenheimers family have managed to turn those in government into their puppets who do their bidding at will. On Firebill's website, it states, and I quote, "Managed by the South African government, the facilities is operated independently as a parallel point at the entry of OR Tambo International Airport by the Department of Home Affairs and the South African Revenue Service, which on the site support from the South African Police Service. Home Affairs officials are needed across the country, and the government has a backlog of documents to process in hundreds of thousands. In our townships, there is an obvious lack of visible policing. So why is it desperately needed and state resources are used to assist this particular family that have only looted our country from its resources? But the terminal is not only worrying because it undermines the states. It is also worrying because the history of the Oppenheimer family and the mining industry in general. We are deeply so involved in illicit financial flows in our country. Money and goods, which should be accounted for by SARS, is leaving this country illegally through this terminal. The private Fireblade Airport terminal must be closed down, and we cannot allow the private individuals to be above the law and behave like God in our country. We need to come to terms, come up after 8th of May, to ensure that we close down, if the ANC don't have the political will, to close down these excesses where money is leaving our country. We will do it as the EFF. We are not scared of anyone who seeks to undermine the black child, who seeks to block the black child from obtaining services in this country. The Oppenheimers is not God, and we will show them as the EFF that they are not God. We will close it down if the ANC don't have the political will to do so together with the DA. We do support the amendment. I thank you.
Barbara Stewart.
Mhlonishwa Sekela Somblom, the Inkatha Freedom Party support the interim report and its request for permission in terms of Assembly Rule 2864C to amend other provisions in the Airport Company Act 44 of 1993. Importantly, the Portfolio Committee had the foreign side to recognize that other important provisions in the Principal Act require amendment, as well as the need for further public consultations on certain aspects of proposed amendment that are beyond the present scope of the bill. The IP accordingly support the interim report and the request. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Kubisa.
Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the National Freedom Party supports the Airports Company Amendment Bill 2018 tabled here today. It is our considered view that AXA has a vital role to play. However, like all other state companies, it has not displayed any immunity to fraud, corruption, maladministration, and fight over tenders and positions. It has been our concern that a state entity, which should be ensuring the administration and operation of aviation, transportation, logistics, and aviation matters, lacked a solid and stable regulatory framework. Due to gaps in legal framework, people ended up not knowing what AXA's job was, except leasing of business offices. This bill, therefore, amends Act 44 of 1993, which is the principal act, and also strengthens the economic regulatory framework and explains the role and functions of regulating committees and appeal procedure. Of prime importance to us are the laws that deal with job creation, ending of poverty and good governance, and consequence management. It is also important to align the principal act with the Companies Act, Act 71 of 2008. AXA, like other government entities, has a responsibility to open new opportunities to our youth and women SMEs. AXA must be managed by people qualified in aviation, finance, law, economics, engineering, and other technical skills. Even regulatory committees must show these scarce skills. We support. Thank you very much.
ANC.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I will thank the honorable members that have participated in support of the amendment of the AXA Amendment Bill, particularly the scope that has to be looked at, particularly the principal act, the challenges that we have come across. Thank you for the support. The ANC support, of course, this amendment because it's important for the transformation agenda that the ANC continues to drive, the transformation agenda that continues to make sure that the SOEs, in terms of the participation in the economy, is open up. It allows the participants by all South Africans. That is why the ANC has brought this amendment before Parliament for it to be amended. Therefore, the important part of it, Deputy Speaker, is that we're making sure that there's a participation as required by the Constitution, that the participation of communities in the amendment in the lawmaking process. That is why we are going back to republish the bill for public comment and public participation to make sure that the people are at the center of the lawmaking process. It is important to make sure that in this process that I hear the DA speaks about what they're going to be watching as a dominant party. Let me just say this in reply, because it is the ANC who governs this country. The ANC is a governing party. ANC will be governing party after the 8th of May. ANC will continue this driving the agenda. Anything that we are talking about, the dominance that is going to get, you can talk about it, but this is the people's decision. People who decide that the ANC come back here after the 8th of May. You watch the space, you will see. For the fact that the ANC continue to say, let's transform these institutions, the ANC government is driving the transformation of state-owned enterprises. It's the ANC that is doing that. Nobody else is doing it, not at the instance of anybody or the opposition saying, do it. We do it because it's a task that we have been given by electors to do. So we'll continue to do that, whether you like it or not. Let's end this by saying that it's nice to hear the ANC got 62%. They'll continue with that percentage in terms of domination in the coming election. Wait and see. You will see that happen. So forget about watching you're going to do about the dominance, because the ANC is going to continue to govern as a dominant party. You can shake your head. ANC support this amendment bill. We are on the road to govern again.
Honorable members, we take it there are no objections to the committee being granted permission in terms of Rule 2864C to inquire into amending provisions of the airports company. Am I right? I am. It's agreed to. No objections. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on draft regulations made in terms of Section 23(1) of Legal Aid South Africa Act 2014, Act number 39 of 2014, table in terms of Section 23(2) of the Act.
Honorable Mutapo, Clome.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, honorable members, fellow South Africans. This is a report of the Portfolio Committee of Justice on draft regulations made in terms of Section 23(1) of Legal Aid South Africa. And these rules, draft regulations, are tabled in terms of Section 23, subsection 2 of the said Act, dated 13 February this year. The Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, having considered the draft regulations made in terms of Section 23(1) of Legal Aid South Africa Act 2014, Act number 39 of 2014, recommends that the National Assembly approves the regulations. The committee further reports as follows. The regulations to the Legal Aid South Africa Act 39 of 2014 came into operation on the 22nd August 2017. The committee, when considering the approval of the regulations during 2017, requested the minister to consider a review of the means test. Consequently, Legal Aid South Africa considered the impact of inflation on the appropriateness of the current means test and recommended an increase on the means test. The committee is of the view that the revised means test will further increase access to justice for poor people and close the gap between the rich and poor in terms of legal aid assistance. We therefore request this Honorable House to consider the report of the Portfolio Committee of Justice and Correctional Services as tabled. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable members, I see declarations.
Deputy Speaker, there's no objection, but we would like to make a declaration.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you very much.
member.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, we rise in support of the changes that are to be made to the legal aid regulations. The aim of providing legal aid through public funds is fundamentally intended to broaden access to justice, but also to enhance fairness in our judicial system, specifically in our criminal justice system. The proposed amendments to the regulations relate only to the criteria in terms of which an applicant may qualify for legal aid, and more specifically the means test. While members of the Portfolio Committee were at first apprehensive about the possible exclusionary effect of an increase in the monthly income applicants must enjoy in order to qualify for legal aid, we were assured that the increase is purely based on inflation and will still ensure that roughly 70% of South Africans will qualify for legal aid based on the current income levels. In addition, it must be noted that the means test is not the final criteria determining whether an applicant qualifies for legal aid, as the Constitution requires that applicants should be assisted if they cannot afford the cost of their own legal representation and would suffer substantial injustice in the absence of legal aid. In this regard, we must warn, though, that whether this discretion is to be exercised in favour of those who will hopefully stand accused in the near future, based on a proper investigation to the allegations and revelations before the State Capture Commission, is something that will have to be carefully considered. We cannot allow that those who have plundered the fiscus and in the process nearly brought our country to a fall to now come and plead that they should not pay for their own defence because the costs are so high. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF.
Deputy Speaker, for a very long time, legal aid in South Africa has been governed by the Legal Aid Guide, prescribed in terms of the now repealed Legal Aid Act of 1969. The Legal Aid Guide has undergone a number of changes to make justice more accessible to the majority of those who do not have means to procure independent lawyers for themselves when in court, but it remains an apartheid-era piece of legislation inherently antagonistic towards black people. We welcome, therefore, the promulgation of the Legal Aid South African Act 2014, which came into operation with effect from 1 March 2015, and which prescribed the regulation we are now here to adopt. Section 25(2)(c) of the Constitution states that everyone who is detained or appear in court has a right to have a legal practitioner assigned to the detained person by the state and at the state expense, if substantial injustice would otherwise result, and to be informed of this right promptly. So ideally, we should be welcoming any attempt to reform the legal aid guide, which was at most an inherently inadequate measures to provide access to justice to everyone. But the draft regulations are not fundamentally different either. There is nothing in the draft regulation that seeks to deal with the problem of the quality of the legal aid provided by the legal aid. Of times, this service provided by legal aid have been of such poor quality and have led to the incarceration of people who would otherwise not been incarcerated had they had access to good quality lawyers. This then justifies the wide-held view by society that justice is only for those who have money to can afford good lawyers. We also do not agree with the manner some of the sections of the regulation have been written, which may suggest that granting of legal representation is conditional. We demand that access to justice must be open to everyone and no restrictions such as the one mentioned above should be placed on people. We also demand that the Legal Aid South Africa must desist from employing inexperienced lawyers, but most employed quality, experienced lawyers to represent our people. The regulations are not sufficient to deal with the changes of the legal representation, but we think that there are steps forward in resolving these challenges. Deputy Speaker, we as EFF, again, we like the Legal Aid Board to be financed or be empowered in terms of financial resources, because it lacks financial support which can make them to acquire very expensive or very knowledgeable senior counsel to represent the poor. The EFF support this report.
Thank you. Honorable Ngoezi. I see you wanted to lead the DA, and Honorable Steenhuisen refused to the opportunity. Go ahead,
Thank you
Honorable
very
Member.
much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I am making this declaration on behalf of the Inkosi E.M. Buthelezi. Honorable Deputy Chair, the IFP supports the report and recommendations of the Portfolio Committee. Access to justice, which is enshrined in our Constitution, must be made provision for in our framework legislation, as our citizens have the explicit right to have disputes heard before a court of law. This right ensures that the rule of law is upheld and should be applied fairly to all citizens. The sad fact remains, though, that the current high cost of litigation translates into justice only being accessible by those who can afford the high prices of lawyers and advocates. Therefore, legal aid carries a constitutional mandate to help our poor and vulnerable receive fiscally funded legal assistance. By revising the means test, access to justice will be increased, and the IFP is therefore in full support of the report of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Ngabe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The legal aid was established to ensure access to justice and the realization of the right of a person to have legal representation as envisaged in the Constitution of South Africa. It is the duty of the Legal Aid South Africa to give legal advice and to provide education and information to those who cannot afford legal expenses. The Legal Aid Act provides that the minister must, after receipt of recommendations from the board, make regulations relating to, among other things, the requirements or criteria that an applicant must comply with in order to qualify for the legal aid, as well as the terms and obligations in which such legal aid is made available to the applicant. The Act further provides that before any regulations can be published, it must first be tabled before this Parliament by the minister responsible for approval. The NFP therefore supports the reports of the Portfolio Committee, and we share the same sentiments with the committee that the review of the means test by increasing its scope will open more legal assistance to those of our people who cannot afford the legal expenses of private law firms to have more access to justice than before. The NFP accordingly supports this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Klondat, ANC.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Let justice be done, though the heavens may fall. From the onset, the African National Congress declares its support for the report of the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services on the draft regulations made in terms of Section 23(1) of the Legal Aid South Africa Act 39 of 2014. Throughout its existence, the ANC has promoted human rights, justice, and human dignity. From the days of Pixley Kaisa Kaseme, we advocated for the right to a fair trial, courts which are representative of all the people, and equality before the law. We advocated for access to justice for all. We understood very well that there can be no access to justice without legal representation before a court of law. Legal Aid South Africa provides legal representation to persons, particularly the indigent, at state expense. The concept of access to justice denotes the situation where state legal systems are organized to ensure that every person is able to invoke the legal processes for legal redress, irrespective of social or economic capacity, and that every person should receive a just and fair treatment within the legal system. For the ANC, access to courts and legal representation should never only be available to the elite. Regulation 27 provides for the means test to determine whether a person qualifies for legal aid. This test is necessary to assess the affordability of a person in order to qualify for legal aid. An applicant's net monthly income and their assets are taken into consideration when making the determination. The proposed regulation increases the qualifying monthly net income from 5,500 per month to 7,400 per month for an applicant in a criminal matter. It increases the month for 5,500 to 7,400 in a civil matter in a case of an applicant who does not have a spouse or member of a household. If the applicant for legal aid in a civil case has a spouse or is a member of a household, the qualifying monthly net income increases from 6,000 rand to 8,000 rand. Assets and property are taken into consideration. Regulation 30 gives Legal Aid South Africa the discretion to grant aid when a person exceeds the means test in certain circumstances. This discretion, having taken the relevant circumstances into consideration, allows for more people to access legal representation. The impact of this regulation is that access to justice by way of legal representation will be enhanced. No one should be denied their right to legal representation simply because they cannot afford. As the ANC, we call for an amendment to the Act so far as regulations regarding the means test are concerned. It should be mandatory. We move that it should be mandatory that the regulations should be reviewed every 2 years. Why we say this is because the regulations were last reviewed more than 5 years ago. So we feel that it should be mandatory that these regulations should be reviewed every 2 years. The ANC remains committed to the people of this beloved country and will continue to champion for their rights. In the spirit of justice, the ANC supports this report. And Deputy Speaker, let me go out of order and say, Richias Bagase from the Justice Fraternity, or Reteche Khadia Maswana, Waniana Autokamuleji Amabukanyane, Guamuleji Ramasko, Khadi Yamaswana, Kasta Semenya Sam Mama Sai, Tekwama Twama Kibi, Khadi Yabakhalaga, Relewo.
Thank you. Honorable members, having listened to the declarations, I take it there are no objections to the approval of the draft regulations made in terms of Section 231 of Legal Aid South Africa Act as it appears on the order paper. Am I right? There's no objection. Thank you. It's agreed to. The Secretary will read the third order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Science and Technology on study tour to Republic of Korea and Japan from the 15th to the 25th June 2018, sorry.
Okay. I see the chairperson is here. What I have here is a different name. Honorable members, can you have order and give me the correct names of people who come here? It's better that way. Come, Honorable Chairperson. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
It's on. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It is on. My T-shirt is on for Castor, and we support her. Thank you very much. Informing the visit was the National Development Plan Vision 2030 that seeks to transform the South African economy and the livelihood of all citizens. The NDP asserts that science, technology, and innovation is crucial for development since countries that have efficiently alleviated poverty by growing their economies have done so by investing in and developing strong STI environments and capabilities. Against this background, the committee chose the countries of South Korea and Japan as countries which could provide beneficial learning experience for the South African scenario. Both Korea and Japan have, in a relatively short period of time, transformed their economies and the wealth of their nations by integrating science, technology, and innovation into every aspect of their development. The purpose of the visit was also to understand and learn from these countries on how STI policy planning and coordination was conducted, to learn best practices with regards to integrating STI into all sectoral development plans, to identify possible policy approaches that could be used to increase the level of R&D investment, to learn about the areas of STI cooperation with Korea and Japan, and how successful cooperation projects could be expanded and or be continued, to identify opportunities for human capacity development, and gather information on how Parliament, through its oversight function, can ensure that STI is fully integrated into all sectoral development plans and are adequately resourced. All the organizations visited by the delegation expressed a strong desire to further expand the collaboration effort already in existence between the two countries, either South Africa and South Korea, and also South Africa and Japan. This extends to student training and exchange programs. Both Korea and Japan, at the time of their configuring their economies through STI, had in place an already highly skilled workforce created by the importance that their cultures place in education, and South Africa has an added difficulty of creating a highly skilled workforce while it stays abreast of and develops its own strategic areas of expertise within the global technology development sphere. The lessons are that both South Korea and Japan managed to rapidly transform their economies through the integration of science, technology, and innovation into every aspect of their development trajectory. These two countries have worldwide leading experience rate in science, technology, and innovation, notably the 5% Korean national budget, which was allocated to R&D, compared to South Africa, approximate 0.9%. Both Korea and Japan have STI policy formulation and the coordination of their science and innovation system located within cabinet offices under the president and led by the prime minister. This configuration ensures that all ministries that receive a budget allocation for R&D implements the R&D mandate as dictated by the national STI plan. Both countries place strong emphasis on human values, ethical development, creativity, care for others, and the environment, and the value of change as the drivers behind the use of implementation of the STI. On opportunities for South Africa is that South Africa is rich in natural resources and biodiversity that are in demand in high-growth economies such as Japan and South Korea. In addition, South Africa's extensive infrastructural development program divides investment opportunities for Japanese or South Korean companies for new research and innovation and will attract high-level skills. Energy and water are particularly important focus for South Africa, and Japan is a world leader in energy and environmental technologies. A critical skill shortage in South Africa and a situation of highly skilled yet declining population in Japan. The latter has a relatively low retirement age of 60 for most companies and institutions. South Africa has an expanding population while Japan has an aging population. However, in Japan, the importance of teaching experience means that several professors with long careers remain in the institution past the official retirement age. A recognition of the importance of science, technology, and innovation to economic growth and challenges such as environment and energy security, especially in the wake of major global challenges, including climate change. These are reflected in the country's respective national plans aimed at strengthening innovation, both of which recognize the importance of human capital, international networks between knowledge economies through research and cooperation, and the importance of open economies and societies.
Thank you very much. Your time is now.
Thank you very much, Chair. The ANC supports this report.
Thank you. Deputy. Yes, Deputy.
Chair, to the Deputy President in his absence, the fourth industrial revolution is characterized by the fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres, breaking through a number of fields such as robotics, AI, and nanotechnology. South Korea and Japan are considered two of South Africa's most important and strategic cooperation partners in the areas of science, technology, and innovation. Both South Korea and Japan have significantly advanced in their country's development trajectory through the active inclusion of STI within their national development policies. South Africa is striving to do the same, albeit from a significantly lower base in terms of education standards and investment in research and development. The purpose of this study tour was to establish how policy decisions around science and technology have an influence on economic growth and skills development in these respective countries, and how they incorporate the advancements of Industry 4.0 into their societies. Korea's economy is driven by export-led growth. Given that Korea does not have significant natural resources, its human capital is its most important resource. Education is therefore highly regarded by Korean societies. Emphasis is placed on the importance of having a diverse, well-educated workforce, and during the past few years, the Korean government has concentrated on the potential challenges and opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution and what skills would be needed for the country to best take advantage of the opportunities and mitigate potential threats. KAIST, Korea's most elite STI-focused research university, was established to produce the high-level SCI human capacity needed to support Korea's industrialization drive and to conduct both the short and long-term basic and applied research that enabled Korea's strategic technological advancements. Korea's total R&D investment as a percentage of GDP is the highest in the world at 4.23%. South Africa's R&D investment in relation to its GDP is 0.8%. Japan and South Africa have a long-standing, well-established STI cooperation program, which Japan is keen to expand. However, issues stemming from bureaucracy, IP ownership, modalities within joint projects, and the death of the high-level skills in South Africa are all hampering efforts to realize greater degrees of collaboration between the two countries. Japan, being the world leaders in catalysis research, but lacking the platinum reserves and solar energy for the production of hydrogen, is therefore an important partner for South Africa in terms of advancing the country's ambitions of being part of the hydrogen economy. While South Africa's Deputy President and the ANC is still figuring out Industry 4.0, Japan's broad objective of the 5th Science and Technology Basic Plan, Society 5.0, is guiding Japan to become the most innovative-friendly country in the world. What have we learned from the trip? Participation in the sectors of science and technology for South Africa is more in basic research than in applied research. R&D investment by government in South Africa is below 1% as compared to South Korea and Japan. This curbs research and knowledge generation in SNT. A well-educated workforce in Japan and South Korea allow them to absorb new technologies. Investing in education at all levels is critical in laying the foundation for technical capabilities and industrial development. Cross-cutting ministries are linked together to ensure SNT innovation is central to economic growth and human resource development. And they agree, as the DA, that the ministries of higher education and science and technology should be combined as one ministry, cutting costs and synergizing skills development with future demand. South Africa's low education and skills ability is aggravated by the unclear policies of the ANC, leading one to wonder, do they really learn from the best practices when going on these study tours? Ons aanvaar hierdie verslag. Suid-Afrikaners, stem ja op 8 Mei vir duidelike ekonomiese, onderwys, kommunikasie en innoverende beleid. Stem vir een Suid-Afrika. Stem ja.
Dankie. EFF.
Chairperson, the purpose of the study tour to South Korea and Japan was primarily to learn from their experiences in using science, technology, and innovation to develop and to grow their economies. Both Japan and South Korea have effectively used science, technology, and innovation to rapidly expand and develop their economy in a short space of time. But our government is blinded by the lack of vision, disabled by incompetence and corruption, and is foolishly committed to neoliberal economics. The reality is that the economies of South Korea and Japan grew because of strategic intervention and support by the state of the science and technology sector and the economy as a whole. And many of the observations made during the tour mirror what we, as the EFF, have laid out in our manifesto. South Korea's total research and development budget for 2018 was 990 billion rand, meaning total investment in research and development represent 4.23% of their GDP. In South Africa, it is not yet at 1%, with government departments being required to spend specific percentages on the research and development, along with incentive for the private sector. In South Korea and Japan, data is cheap and accessible to all citizens, which help cultivate a culture which is engaged and creative in their internet use. In South Korea in particular, the state has supported the development and the growth of companies like Samsung and have promoted internalized industrialization through interventions such as tariff subsidies and the provision of state infrastructure. In both countries, the basis, however, for their large and developed science, technology, and innovation sector has been education. Students are exposed to technology and trained how to use from primary school right through to the university, all of which is heavily subsidized by the state. What is also important to note, and is something we as the EFF keep on emphasizing, is that technology and innovation are not end in themselves, but means to an end, which is the development of the economy and improved standard of living for our people. As the EFF, we have long been aware of the policies and programs of action developed and implemented by the countries like South Korea and Japan, and they find expression in our manifesto. We support the said report. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC?
Thank you, Chairperson. It is important for portfolio committees of Parliament to travel abroad. This visit to Korea and Japan has inspired us and cemented the importance for science and technology in South Africa. When you arrive in Korea, you realize what can be done, what is possible after you had a war, and within 60 years after hard work, discipline and focus, you have changed your country. To have visited some of the Korean universities specializing in science and technology was an absolutely eye-opener. The Samsung Digital City is an experience beyond the fourth industrial revolution. While we are in other countries worry about job losses the fourth industrial revolution might bring, Korea's citizens think they will have better jobs when robots take over jobs that is repetitive and not stimulating. That is a positive attitude, but then you must be ready for it. When you arrive in Japan, you are astonished by the discipline and politeness of that nation. During the last Summer Olympics in Japan in 1964, they introduced the bullet trains. It took over the world since 1964. On this visit, they introduced to us, our committee, hydrogen as the new energy for transport. In the 2020 Summer Olympics in Japan, all athletes will travel in buses driven by hydrogen. Will it take over the world like bullet trains? I think so. But for hydrogen, there is a good opportunity for partnerships in South Africa, and we will look into that. South Africa and Japan relations are good. We do have the highest number of Japanese companies invested here than any other African country. Japan can be an enormous partner for South Africa in future. But all these incredible successes comes with a human price. Both countries have the world's highest number of suicides per capita. How is that possible? If you are young, you fail at school level, you do not see a future, and you decide to leave world. It's a cruel world. No doubt, South Africa is the most advanced country in Africa as far as science and technology are concerned. The emphasis by the President in his SONA speech addresses the importance of that, and it must be welcomed. His emphasis to equip our young learners with technology is an important step to prepare all of us, also those who cannot afford it, for the fourth industrial revolution. With our SKA and Meerkat development, South Africa is already running with the world leaders. Now South Africa has been asked to join the Pan-European Consortium comprising of 9 European countries. This will be finalized in June. South Africa will become a regional center and therefore an important role player for the space weather infrastructure provision to aviation in Africa. Another milestone for science and technology and the African National Congress. Let's hope that party the best for the 8th of May, and they will come back to take this country to higher milestones. The ANC are supporting this report.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. The motion is that the report... may I please recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party first?
Thanks, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. I will now ask the Secretary to read the fourth order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Police on study visit to the People's Republic of China from the 8th to the 15th October 2017.
I will now ask the Chairperson of the committee, Honorable Beekman, to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Thank you very much, honourable members, fellow South Africans. The Portfolio Committee on Police embarked on a study visit to the People's Republic of China at the invitation of the Internal and Judicial Affairs Committee of the National People's Congress, which is the equivalent of the Portfolio Committee on Police in South Africa. And I must indicate that during this parliamentary term, it's one of the highlights of our activities as a Portfolio Committee. The aim of the visit was to provide the delegation with a first-hand opportunity to interact with our counterparts of the NPC, as well as other relevant institutions and organizations, and share ideas on best practice and innovation in the areas of police training, municipal police, technology, transnational crime, and the involvement of citizens in curbing crime. We had a meeting with the Standing Committee of the NPC that took place at the Chinese People's Congress. The Vice Chairperson of the NPC, Mr. Ling Zhuang, welcomed the delegation and expressed his appreciation for the delegation's visit. He assured the delegation of the NPC's commitment to strengthening and deepening the bilateral relations between the two countries, not only at the level of the executive, but also between the NPC and the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. The NPC viewed the BRICS membership by the two countries, the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation, and various many other platforms as presenting an opportunity for strengthening and further deepening of the ties between the two countries. As the highest organ of state power, the NPC has powers to legislate, oversee the operations of government, the power to elect major officials of state, and most importantly, the power to amend the Constitution and to oversee its enforcement. We also met with the Ministry of Justice as well as members of the Supreme People's Court officials. One of the important interactions we had was with the Judicial Service Commission of the NPC, and they briefed us on the core of police training in the People's Republic. They also indicated the importance of high standards set for Chinese police to observe and adhere to carrying out their duties. Over the years, the NPC committee had approved the budget for the Public Security Ministry, which play a major role in some of the reforms of policing in the People's Republic of China. Maybe just to indicate in terms of the findings and observations the committee found during our study visit to the People's Republic, there is a strong collaboration between the Ministry of Justice and the Public Service Ministry under the Chinese Police Service. The delegation observed an overwhelmingly community involvement and partnership with the police in fighting against crime. We as the Portfolio Committee also believe that is a model that we can use in South Africa in ensuring that we have the cooperation of the public in fighting crime. There's also a very strong emphasis on professionalism, accountability, and consequence management in the work of the Chinese police. We believe that the South African Police Service should utilize the opportunity presented by their Chinese counterparts to engage in training exchange programs in various aspects of training. The delegation also noted the strides which the Chinese government has undergone in the professionalization of the police service through a combination of training, welfare, and political party discipline. The delegation noted the results of reliance on the usage of technology by the Chinese authorities as a central pillar of policing and the prosecution of crime. There's a few recommendations that the committee made in our report. The committee recommends that the South African Parliament and the MPC should continue to interact and share ideas on policing matters, in particular the two committees on oversight of policing. The South African Police Service should also utilize the opportunities that exist to learn from their Chinese counterparts in terms of best practice through exchange programs that have been proposed by the PPSUC. We also felt that the South African Police Service should fast-track technology implementation as a force multiplier in fighting crime in the country, and also that SAP should embark on a benchmarking study with regard to the Chinese recruitment model and training methodology for police. House Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you very much. There are requests for declarations. Honourable Member.
Cheers. Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. The Portfolio Committee on Police undertook a parliamentary study trip to the People's Republic of China from 8 to 15 October with the aim of learning about the Chinese policing context and operational practice. The committee observed 3 key distinctions which can assist with making our SAPs more effective and efficient. First, we learned that there is a strong emphasis on ensuring and maintaining a professional police service. It's actually quite difficult to become a police officer in China because a university entrance exam pass is a minimum entry requirement to become a police cadet. Following that, the police training curriculum is 4 years long, in contrast to less than 2 years we have in South Africa, resulting in police officers qualifying with a bachelor's police degree. This is further reinforced with regular in-service training to refresh and update serving police officers on developments in the field. These 2 factors make a world of difference in cultivating the professionalism and discipline of the police. And this is the kind of approach a DA national government would implement for an honest and professional police service. Secondly, there is an emphasis on specialization, where police officers can serve in dedicated units most suited to their interests and aptitudes, from household crimes to cyber crimes. And the DA has long advocated a specialization as a policing reform pillar. Third, as we learned during our interaction with the Shanghai Municipal Police Bureau, there was extensive use and application of modern technology in police work. In the case of Shanghai, this has been spurred by the need, more than anything else, because the police force in that city is short-staffed. Just 50,000 officers servicing a population of more than 30 million people. In contrast, South Africa has more than 3 times as many police officers servicing less than twice as many people. To compensate, the Shanghai police leverage a CCTV surveillance network linked to a computer system with automatic number plates and facial recognition software, artificial intelligence programs, and big data analytics in order to work smarter and be effective in spite of human capacity constraints. However, Chairperson, the most fascinating observation from the study trip was concerning the discipline and accountability that has been maintained in political governance since the late 1970s, in the absence of checks and balances on state power. One would have expected the ruling elite of the Chinese Communist Party to have fallen victim to the corrupting influence of concentrated power, but human fallibility seems to have been constrained over the last almost 40 years. Given that China is a one-party state, where the key political, economic, and social levers are held in the hands of a few and controlled very tightly, I concluded that this phenomenon must have something to do with the leadership ethic and a coherent political will of the Communist Party elite. My thesis is that the country's experience of the political, economic, and humanitarian disaster of ideological excess during the Cultural Revolution gave the Communist Party leadership a deep resolve to adopt and adhere to pragmatism and meritocracy as core principles of governance. This seems to best explain why successful investment and trade policy and corruption curtailments have been implemented in China in the absence of checks and balances, an independent judiciary, free media, and free and fair multi-party elections. Without negating the very serious issues of authoritarianism and human rights violations in China, this governance ethic, founded on pragmatism and meritocracy and animated by a focused and resolute political will, a political will this ANC government lacks, is probably the biggest lesson we can take as a leaf from China's book. A DA national government would have the political will to cut corruption, speed up service delivery, secure our borders, and build one South Africa for all. So on the 8th of May, vote DA for change, vote DA for a better future. I thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, EFF, Honorable Mentor.
Thank you, House Chair. This is one of those study tours where South Africa was supposed to have implemented everything else they've learned there. The Portfolio Committee visited to the People's Republic of China, and EFF was represented by Honorable Member Philip Mhlongo. It was very useful, educational, and offered insight into what a well-run, well-trained, and disciplined police force should look like. There were high standards to which police officers are held, as they are required to graduate from the Central University for Police in Beijing before they are put into action. There were commanders that were giving reports on how the quality of recruits, allowing the Central University to make adjustment in training programs. In Shanghai, we learned that how the Chinese police force is using cutting-edge, state-of-the-art technology, including all to improve crime fighting with every suburb of the city under surveillance. What was also interesting to note was that the police were wearing cameras when on duty, allowing for greater accountability and capturing of incidences as they happen. But the most lessons taken away from the tour was the Chinese approach to corruption. In China, there's absolutely zero tolerance for corruption, regardless of your position within government or the ruling Communist Party, with top officials being sentenced to death for corrupt activities. There are many lessons that can be learned from the Chinese approach to policing, but I doubt that any of these observations or recommendations will find expression in the policies and programs of actions of the South African Police Service under the ANC government. Just like in China, under the EFF government will ensure that all police stations are housed in properties that are owned by the state. That's for starters. No police station must rent for any infrastructure in order for the police to be accessed. Just like in China, under the EFF government, all police stations will have proper raping kits. The FCS unit will have properly trained and equipped police. And just like in China, all wards in South Africa will have satellite police stations where there are no police stations, and all the police will be sufficiently paid, and they will be recruited in a proportional ratio to the community that they are serving. Not this thing we are having today that when you call a van in Kofimvaba, Nasengcobo, Deputy Minister of Finance, it takes 2 days to get there because how you recruit the police today, you don't recruit them in a ratio of the community that they serve. And when you are buying equipment and resourcing the police, you don't resource them according to the needs of the communities that they serve. And under the EUFF government, on the 8th of May, that is all going to change. Thank you.
Siyabonga. NFP, Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, allow me to deviate a little bit. You know, from the very outset, allow me to express my disappointment at the continued marginalization of minorities in South Africa in this House. Now, Honorable Chair, the smaller parties in this House only get 3 minutes to debate, 1 minute of which they spend introducing themselves. Now, what does it say? It clearly says that the larger parties are oppressing the smaller parties because not one single larger party in this House has ever entertained the concerns by the smaller parties to be given more time. What we are forgetting is that the smaller parties also have people and followers behind them that they represent in this House. Now, the same thing happened when this committee went to China. It went to China, but it left certain members out. But the very same members are supposed to participate, conduct oversight, but you leave them out. So I think the system needs to be attended to. Because otherwise, what the minorities did before '94, the majority is now doing to the minorities in South Africa. So I think we need to look at that. We need to change it. The rules in this House must change so that it benefits everybody. Let me add, it will not affect the larger parties. We're not asking you to reduce your time, but we are asking you to increase the time by 1 or 2 minutes for the smaller parties, so we can also contribute meaningfully. Let us not be selfish. Now, the NFP has said before time and time again, and the previous ministers accepted this, but nothing has been done. We said in order to professionalize the police force and to get the right kind of people with a passion for policing, we must start including it in the curriculum at school level. So that when they come out of school, you will have those people that have a passion for policing. What will they then do? They will then follow a career in policing.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, take your seat. Yes, why are you raising? Honorable member, please. Please. Continue.
Chairperson, to your left. Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable McPherson.
Is the member prepared to take a question?
Honorable, are you prepared to take a question?
I've only got 31 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Continue.
I didn't, was that a yes or a no?
It's fine. He's not. He's not.
Not, okay.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Now, so we said those that are coming out of school, if it's included in the curriculum, will then choose a career in policing. You will have the right people with the right passion, rather than having tens of thousands of people coming out of matric without a job and then going for any position that is advertised. But we take note of the tour and your findings from the department, your recommendations. The National Freedom Party, in light of that, will support the recommendations tabled by the Portfolio Committee, tabled here today, taking into consideration, give the smaller parties more time. Thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. The ANC support the recommendation of the committee, and the ANC, in supporting the recommendation that is presented of the visit to China, is that, of course, as you know, China is part of BRICS. We're all working together. What we have learned, we've learned in China for purpose of the implementation by the ANC, particularly when it deals with the issue of professionalization of the police in terms of the training. So this visit was not just a simple visit for sake of visit. It was a visit for us to be able to learn and take what is important lesson from China in terms of the policing. One of those lessons that we have been able to, or can pick up on, is the issue about community policing. And I think the importance of community policing in China is that every area where you go, you have community policing, you've got the volunteers, you've got community volunteers that are working in the police in those areas, which is what is important, what Minister of Police, Minister Cele, is beginning to introduce, to say, let's bring back all this community participation to be center of the policing, because in any case, community is the best repository of information insofar as the police is concerned. So we have learned, we continue to learn in terms of the visit to China. One of the things that we have as a committee learned and as a recommendation going forward is to make sure that the exchange program, the Chinese were talking about to have more exchange program with South Africa, particularly in the field of the police, because of the technology that they're using, is a recommendation that we support, and we like to say it should happen. The third issue that we raised that we're also in support of is, as China is part of the BRICS, they were obviously saying we want more and more kind of interaction, including the permanent member representing South Africa in the police in China, that they don't have anybody there that they can talk to, is a recommendation we support, that going forward after the 8th of May, the ANC government of the people will make sure that these recommendations are implemented. Let me just say that, Chair, in leaving the podium, having supported this, I just want to clarify this, what is running in the media. Imam, we've just finished the long process in the engagement in the committee. You did not have 7 minutes. You had, everybody had equal time. There was a debate for everybody. No minority had received as little time. It was equal participation. Let me just end by saying, the strange part is, the opposition, today they give an explanation today that they are going to have a caucus. They can't attend the portfolio committee when we finalize the recommendation. But guess what? In the media, they're saying they boycotted the meeting. But the in fact, the apology is that they have a caucus. The media says they boycotted because they did not have sufficient participation. Actually, they had a lot of participation, lots of input in the process. We have even taken lots of, the issue here is, they are crybabies that do not want to see party that is in government in numbers. 8 May comes, it's going to come and happen. You are going to continue to sit on the opposition. You are going to cry baby because your party is going to be down and down and down, because the ANC is going to continue to rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
House Chair, I move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the 5th order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Tourism on visit to Tourism Month activities in Eastern Cape Province.
Mema Kubela Mashele will introduce a report.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of Parliament. The Portfolio Committee on Tourism visited the Eastern Cape Province Umtata during September to observe World Tourism Celebration. The theme for the celebration was inclusive and quality growth of the tourism sector through digital transformation. The theme was meant to encourage travelers to explore the country while fostering an awareness of the socio-economic benefits of technological advances in creating opportunities to improve inclusivity, community empowerment, and efficient resource management in the sector. This augurs well with the demand placed by the Fourth Industrial Revolution on the tourism sector. The Fourth Industrial Revolution provides opportunities for the growth of the sector, but also signals threats if the country does not adjust and adapt accordingly. Mthatha as a sub-destination is rich in history and biodiversity. One of the major attractions is in the area is the Nelson Mandela Museum. The celebrations were held at Mthatha Dam, and it was observed that the dam is underutilized. And there are many tourism or tourist activities that can be developed in the area. There are prospects for developing picnic sites that can overlook the dam, and it is an area easily accessed to game and other real African feel. About the Luchaba Nature Reserve that makes it more than a viable option, particularly given its proximity to the Nelson Mandela Museum. The Luchaba Nature Reserve is adjacent to the Mthatha Dam, which is home to a variety of wildlife, a series of wetlands and grasses, and a wide range selection of birds. To improve the way in which world tourism is celebrated in the country, and in harnessing the true potential of Mthatha as a sub-destination, and in making it a world-class destination of choice, a number of interventions are needed. These interventions must be premised on must be too broad and have cross-cutting endeavors. Firstly, the Portfolio Committee on Tourism recommended that the National Department of Tourism and South African Tourism, which is our key marketing entity, with the provincial management of the sector and the private sector, should enhance the Tourism Month experiences in provinces where the day is celebrated by organizing local tours for all people and those that are excluded to experience various destinations across the country. This will create a more awareness about tourism and what tourism potential can afford for local destinations, and allow ordinary people to experience their surroundings and the area at large. Secondly, the National Department of Tourism and South African and SAT as its entity, together with the Eastern Cape Province through the Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency, must explore and exploit the unique biodiversity, heritage sites, recreational activities, wonderful wildlife, and ensure that the coastline along the coast benefits the tourism sector. Honorable members, it is important to note that the Eastern Cape, as the province of the legends, has variety of tourism products to offer. And we do encourage local tourism agency to ensure that they harness and seize the opportunities that are within the tourism value chain. We present this report to this House for the House to adopt and ensure that the resolutions that are tabled before are taken, and ensure that the department does follow up on the recommendations.
Thank you,
and
Honourable
implement them.
Member.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I realize the declaration asked. Honorable Member, DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. During tourism oversight done in the Eastern Cape, it became clear that in an area where the DA governs, we govern better. Take, for example, some successes in the Nelson Mandela Bay area. Firstly, the Trollip administration appointed community-based tourism forums to improve community awareness of tourism at grassroots level, designed to educate and empower small businesses and ordinary community members about the value of tourism. Secondly, the Trollip administration appointed a director of tourism in 2017, after the position had been vacant since 2012. Thirdly, the Trollip administration renewed the relationship between the DMO, Nelson Mandela Bay Tourism, and the city. This led to a new board with extensive depth of experience. Fourthly, the Trollip administration also saw an increase in cruise ships docking in the city. And fifthly, for those who are really fit and healthy, from all across the globe, the Trollip administration hosted the World 70.3 Ironman Championships. What had basically taken place was a reinvention of tourism which sowed the seeds of a bright new future for tourism in Nelson Mandela Bay. This would have taken just a few years to really make an impact. If this is what can happen in the space of 2 years, imagine what is possible if a province and cities in provinces are correctly run. Just consider the DA-run Western Cape and City of Cape Town. The Air Access project, designed to unlock leisure and business tourism in the province by attracting more direct international flights to Cape Town International Airport, has had astonishing success. An extra 750,000 inbound seats have resulted from the 13 new inbound routes by mid-2018. There is a 20% increase in international arrivals in Cape Town in the past 2 years. A quarter of all tourism-related construction nationally is happening in Cape Town. In fact, we don't have to imagine what tourism can contribute to our city and provincial economies. It's already happening in the City of Cape Town and Western Cape. Under DA administration, dreams become reality. I thank you.
Thank you. Mam Sonti, EFF.
Honorable Chairperson, the EFF views tourism as a sector with the biggest potential yet to create jobs in a sustainable manner. We have in the past registered our appreciation of the critical role tourism plays in growing the economy and its potential to mass job creation. It is currently unable to realize its full potential because of the nature and structure of the tourism industry itself. The industry operates like a mafia controlled by a few tourism players who have access to amenities such as hotels, bread and breakfast establishments, and recreational farms. They absorbed the bulk of the revenue from tourism, appoint a few black people as laborers, and pay them peanuts. This is one of the reasons why the land question is so important. Without radically changing land ownership patterns, tourism will continue benefiting a tiny minority. In the Eastern Cape, the situation is actually worse. With foolish and corrupt people such as the Eastern Cape Parks Board CEO, the future of tourism in the province is very bleak, very dark. If we're serious about governance of the tourism industry in the Eastern Cape, we must hold that CEO accountable. He must tell us why the COO, a very competent black woman, left her position as Eastern Cape Parks. The reality is that we allowed the tourism industry in the Eastern Cape to be captured by idiots whose only interest is to amass as much wealth as possible for themselves. We have obviously asked these questions repeatedly about the corrupt nature of Mr. Daimani. But we have been told that it's not a national competency, but a provincial one. We reject this report because we know it is of no consequence. Nothing will be done. Thank you.
Sithokoze Mhlonishwa. NFP Babu Mngango.
Siyabonga Hlalo, siyabonga uMamsonto.
Honorable Makaula, there's a member on the podium. Please take your seat, please.
Hayi uMamsonto isilungu uyashaya ngiyamvuma. Masibonge Hlalo noma besingayona ingxenye yohambo oluya eEastern Cape. Kodwa siufundile umbiko wekomiti. Siyaweseka kakhulu lo mbiko esiwuthola la. Kuyiqiniso ukuthi ezokuvakasha ezweni lakithi zifaka omkhulu umnotho. Kakhulukazi ngekhathi ezikazibandlela. Kuyasijabulisa ukubona ukuthi umnyango uyazama ukuba nenhlelo ecacile zokuthuthukisa lo mnyango wezokuvakasha. Futhi ke siyavumelana nokusho ikomiti ukuthi njengoba umhlaba wonke uthuthuka kwezobuchwepheshe kubalulekile ukuthi nezokuvakasha nazo kwelakithi izwe ziye ngokuphakamisa amasokisi kwezobuchwepheshe ukuze sikwazi ukuheha abahambi bangaphandle. Okunye sivumelana nako ikomiti elikushilo iloko ukuthi nabantu bakithi kufanele sibaqhuquzele ukuthi mabalazi izwe labo, masibaqhuquzele ukuthi nabo mabake bavakashe ngaphakathi domestic tourism, bavakashe ezweni lakubo balibone. Ngaphambi kokuthi umuntu abeke imali agcina imali yokuya eMauritius, akakabeka imali nje aye eKruger National Park. Abantu mabayeke ukukhuluma amaphutha abakhale ngokuthi basaba amabhubesi, basaba ingwe bengakaze bayibone. Mabavakashela iqhiwi bayowabona lamabhubesi. Bangasho ukuthi bawaphuphe ebusuku bejahwa ibhubesi into akaza ayibone kwayena umuntu. Masibafake kumoya abantu bakithi ukuthi mabasukume umuntu angazalelwa kwaZulu Natal aze afele kaZulu Natal. Makaphuma ahambela ama-province abona izwe lakhe angaxoxelwa. Yazi umuntu wakahlelwa yishwa ngiseNgilandi ngisafunda isikole, omunye wezakhamizi zaseNgilandi besitshela ukuthi imfolozi inhle kangakanani le kaZulu impela, ukuthi babona isiqiwi izinhle kanjani imfolozi. Ngathelwa yihlazo lesimanga sofana ngibe ufakazi ukuthi inhle imfolozi, angikaze ngiye khona. Manje ke ize zonke izinto lezo ofana abantu bakithi kwifundaze zonke sibacela ukuthi hayi makungabi ngabantu baseGoli kuphela ebelokhu beyobhukuda olwandle laseThekwini. Nathi masuke siyeGoli siyobona futhi ezinye izinto ezinhle zakhona Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, silibona izwe lakithi ukuthi lihle kangakanani. Umnotho sizakhele thina, umnotho wethu ushintshe izandla zethu. Siyabonga siyaweseka ke umbiko wekomiti lezokuvakasha. Siyabonga.
Sithokoze Mhlonishwa. The ANC, Mama.
Achtbare voorsitter, ons doen toerisme. We do tourism. Sipilkula ukenketu. The tourism sector reflects the imbalances of the past. Through the NDP, the ANC-led government aims to eliminate inequalities in poverty by 2030. Yes, really. The National Department of Tourism, in collaboration with the Eastern Cape Province and other stakeholders, hosted festivities in celebration of World Tourism Day on 27 September 2018 at the Luchaba Nature Reserve in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape Province, Provincie van die Legendes, Province of the Legends, Ikaya Lamakawe. The purpose is to raise awareness about the importance of tourism and its social, cultural, political and economic value. Achtbare voorsitter, dis nie toevallig dat die viering in die Oos-Kaap provinsie plaasgevind het nie. In 2018 het die ANC die feesvieringe en die legacy van die struggle ikone Tata Madiba en Mama Sisulu gevier. Beide van hulle is boerlinge van hierdie provinsie. President Ramaphosa in his SONA announced the establishment of a presidential commission on the fourth industrial revolution. The tourism sector should be included in the work of the commission to evaluate the impact of the fourth industrial revolution on the tourism sector. The Eastern Cape is an important destination in the product mix. The province, home of the legends, is rich in the history of the struggle liberation. The Eastern Cape enjoys a steady growth of tourism. More can, however, be done to stimulate local economies and promote community beneficiation. The National Department of Tourism has to focus on areas such as Mtata and Luchaba Nature Reserve, which could easily be turned into tourism nodes. The Luchaba Dam has much potential, and the department is urged to explore the development of the attraction as a tourist destination. The Eastern Cape Province must be assisted to exploit its unique biodiversity, heritage sites, wonderful wildlife, and amazing coastline for the benefit of the tourism sector. Provincial and municipal authorities are also urged to ensure that their destinations are accessible to tourists and well maintained. To celebrate the legacy of Madiba and Mama Sisulu, South African Tourism initiated the short-left travel week from 24 to 30 September 2018, which entails discount deals that include iconic tourism destinations that touch the lives of these two struggle icons. This was a Black Friday of travel deals. Mzansi, honor your legends. Vote ANC on 8 May. Mzansi, eer ons legendes. Stem ANC op 8 Mei. Kabisani amakawe enu. Votilani ANC on 8 May. ANC supports the report.
Dankie baie, agbare lid. I will now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Honourable House Chair, we move that the report be adopted.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objection.
Please note the objection of the EFF.
The objection of the EFF will be noted, and as such, the report has been agreed to. And that, colleague, concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.